When I was little, I wanted to know how things worked, why things happened the way they did. I was lucky to witness the Fourth Republic. Even though I didn't understand much at the time, I could remember the joy on my mother's face when she said, "It's a new dawn, Mommy. Come on, let's take you to bed." As we witnessed a new transition, I wondered why no woman was up there to take the front ranks. My mother always said, "It's a man's world out there. You need to work hard." Two questions on my mind. Why don't I do it? Why not me? As things became clearer, I kept asking, how would it be to have one of us at the top? So, I worked harder and even extra hard, hoping that someday, when I'm ready to take the bold step, I'll be undeniable. Nothing good comes easy, they say. I may seem overambitious, but it's good to scare yourself sometimes. My mother said, if all these great men can, I also can.
It's a man's world, my child. You need to work hard.
Working hard for this seemed like a fruitless toil for women. But in 2020, something happened.
Breaking news. The NDC has selected a female running mate.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, we say. This day is the beginning of everything good we've been working for. I'll tell my child and my child's children, just because she can, they also can. Change is here indeed.
Making history is gratifying, but what really matters is not to be the first through the door. What matters is to hold that door open for those behind us.
Come 7th December 2020, let's go to the polls and vote John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Let's vote for inclusiveness. Let's vote number 2 for change.
This interview is going to be after the interview about many other radio stations in Kenya, television stations are already Your Excellency.
We've been comrades for quite a long while, definitely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Now, sir, we have 7 days to the elections. How do you assess your campaign?
I think our campaign has gone very well. We've run a very good campaign in the short period that we've had. We actually had started some campaigning, but at a low intensity level. And then, unfortunately, coronavirus intervened, and so we had to put everything on hold. And so by the time the restrictions were eased for us to be able to go out again and continue the campaign, the time remaining was very short. And so we've had to pack a lot into the campaign. Just when we're getting on the home stretch to the unfortunate demise of our founder took place, and so we had to again suspend the campaign for 7 days. So we lost 7 vital days, and so these last few weeks have been really hectic. We've been going on till the early morning. This morning we got in at about 6:30 a.m. having left the previous day in the morning at 9 a.m. And but the grounds are good. We've covered a lot of bases. There's a lot of enthusiasm amongst the supporters and the general public. They swarm to all the places that we go to meet us and listen to our message. Indeed, a lot of them know the message already. So even while you're talking, people keep, prompting you. Free TVET, Okada, regulates Galamsey properly, repackage Galamsey properly. I mean, they just keep free primary healthcare and all those things. And so it's been good. But also, it reveals the depth of work that needs to be done. This 4 years of NPP has been quite abysmal when it comes to social and economic infrastructure. The roads have deteriorated so badly. And so one of the things that has kept us going till late morning is that for roads that we anticipated will use an hour, you end up using 2 hours because the road has not been maintained. It's in such a poor state. And so the traveling times are longer than we anticipated. So you get to places later. And once you get to a place late, it rolls into the rest of the program, and that's what delays us. But so far, I think it's gone quite well. And we're quite confident. Our own assessment, of the outcome of the elections is that we will win the parliamentary election. I'm convinced of that. We are looking easily at anything between 143 and 145 seats. It might be more than that, but I think that we have garnered the majority in parliament, and so that is one good victory to put in the bag. And then now we can fight for the presidency.
Are you winning the presidency?
Yes, I believe we'll win the presidency. You go around, the general feeling is Ghanaians are tired of this government. It's been a whole litany of broken and false promises. In 2016, Nana Akufo-Addo and his party went over the top in terms of promising. All they wanted was political power. And so anything was good to say. And so they raised the expectations of the people so high in respect of what they could do. You remember all his quotations about us sitting on money and yet we are hungry, Ghanaians are sorrowful, the money is there, we don't need to borrow to, fix this country and all that. All that was a hoax completely, or a scam. And in our local parlance, they will say Sakawa, that represents hoax or scam without insult to anybody. But the people have seen through it now and realized that, there's really nothing to it. You should just see Nanado go around. His only message is free SHS, that's all, and that's what he keeps happening. But even the implementation has been poor, and so we are saying that we're trying to make it better because we must work to take the double track away. It's putting a lot of inconvenience on parents. Children come stay at home for as long as 3 months or more, and when they stay at home, a lot of parents who care about their children's education have to go and get teachers to do extra studies. And the intention of free SHS was to take the burden of parents in paying any fees at all. And so if you take the burden of paying fees off them, and yet because their children have to stay for a prolonged period in the house, and so because of that they have to pay a teacher to teach, then it means that it ends up being the same cost 90 work. Zero work done. So we are going to work to take the double track away. And one of the things that Nana Akufo-Addo should have done was to have continued the community day school concept that we brought in. Because even without the 43 I commissioned before I left office, several, about another 50 were at different stages of completion, needed just a little more to complete them. Some had been roof, doors and everything put in, was just left to plaster, paint and all that. And so he could easily have brought about 100 of those schools, on track if he had continued from where we left off. But even the 43 we finished, those that are operational have helped to ease the congestion in the existing secondary schools, because what is causing the trouble track is, of course, with free SHS, more kids are coming into secondary school, and most of our secondary schools do not just have enough space to accommodate them. And each of these new community day schools has the capacity to take close to 1,000 students. And so if we even finish 100 of them, that would be 100,000 students who could easily, have been put in other schools and ease the congestion in the existing schools, so that then you can take your time and expand the capacity in those. What he decided to do was to expand the capacity in the existing schools and abandon the e-schools, But when we come, we will fast track the completion of those schools. For those that are in places where they're community schools, and so they are supposed to serve more than one community. So even though they're in a particular community or close to a particular community, it is meant to serve all the communities around. The catchment area, fantastic. That's exactly the word I was looking for. And so for those that are in places that are difficult to access, we're going to put residential facilities. We'll put a dormitory block so that children who don't come from that particular community can have a place place to stay and study. We'll put a master's bungalow, a head teacher's bungalow, so that we can make it a complete school, able to provide quality education in this catchment area. Actually, some of the schools, the World Bank ones, came with accommodation for the headmaster and accommodation for teachers. And so for those ones, all we need to do is to put a hostel block there so that children who come from outside the community can have, a place to stay while they learn.
So in spite of everything you say, everything you've said, your opponents still insist that if you got back power, you will cancel the so-called free SHS system.
Well,
how would you convince the population?
That's generally politics for you. I mean, first of all, I'm surprised that a lawyer like Nana Akufo-Addo can equate review to abolish or cancel. Review means, at every stage. Recently, the Conference of Heads of Assisted Senior Secondary Schools came out and asked the government to review the policy in order to address the bottlenecks and challenges. Any policy you have, after a while, you need to sit and look at it again and see what the challenges are, and then you review it so that it performs better. And so it was in that context I used the word review. But of course, he has refused stubbornly to understand what review means, and he says in his own understanding, review means to cancel or to abolish. That's surprising for a lawyer, you understand. I thought that he would leave it to his foot soldiers to try and spread that misinformation. But when it's coming from the top gun himself, then it means that, they've run out of options. That is the action of a desperate person, to deliberately twist the words of your opponent and try to sell it to the populace as being the reality of what the person says. Of course, parents are not happy with the double track, and so if you did a review, you will be able to put a timeline and say this is what we need to do in order to get rid of the double track. And so those are the kinds of things that a review of the policy, would be able to do to improve implementation. Quality of feeding is very bad. Ask any of the students. The food is poor quality and it's not enough. And so when children are going to school, their parents have to pack their chop boxes with a lot of gari and other things to supplement their feeding. So that becomes another cost, on the parents. And so, for instance, if you did a review, you wonder, what is the feeding policy? They've taken the feeding from the headmaster, so it's no longer the responsibility of the headmaster directly for feeding. And they've given it to Buffer Stock Agency. Now, the problem with that is, if Buffer Stock Agency does not deliver the food, sometimes the headmasters are stuck, how to feed the children. And I've known headmasters who have said they've had to go out and borrow foodstuffs and come and cook because their food did not come from Buffer Stock. And so one of the things we will do, if we did a review, is to put the responsibility for feeding back to the heads of the schools. If they want to buy the food from Buffer Stock, they are free to do so. But to say that you give them only a percentage for the perishables, the tomatoes and things, but as for the grains and yams and things, the Buffer Stock will take it. It's a very inefficient system. But you know what? It is also a system for cronyism and patronage. Those who supply the food to Buffer Stock and to the schools are party executives, members of the New Patriotic Party. And so if you're a farmer, Kwesi, I don't know if you farm, but if you had 1,000 bags of maize from your farm and you wanted to sell it to Buffer Stock won't take it from you. They'll refer you to one of their party executive agents, and he will buy it off you at a lower price, and then Buffer Stock will buy it from him at a higher price. And then they are the same people who would supply to the schools, and make profit of it. So it's a system, that's the whole Nanado administration has put in there. If you go to premix, the same thing. Premix, we used to give the premix to landing beach committees made up of fishermen and canoe owners. As soon as they came, they collapsed the landing beach committees. Now they take the premix to their party executives, and then they put their profit on it and sell it to the fishermen. Most of them are not fishermen, but then they make a profit. So it's a whole patronage system that he's presiding over. Of course, that feeds into this whole mantra of corruption that has virtually overwhelmed his administration.
Now, so how soon can we expect a government led by you to end the traffic light system?
I have said clearly and boldly that when I'm sworn in on 7th January 2021, by the grace of God, within 1 year of being sworn in, it means 7th January 2022, we would have ended the double track system. Like I said, first of all, we'll fast track the completion of the community schools. And then we have also identified high density urban centers where the demand for secondary education is very high. And so we're going to place some schools within those areas. Aside from that too, we have existing secondary schools that have extra land. And so we can put a school on the land of an existing secondary school, and so we'll have 2 secondary schools on the same plot of land. Let me give you an example. Let's take West Africa Secondary School in Medina, Adenta. It serves the whole of Adenta, Medina catchment area. That's where most of the students go to school. West Africa Secondary School has extra land. If we put one of those E-blocks on that land, we can have 2 secondary schools on the same plot of land. And so you can double the capacity immediately to absorb more children. And once you're able to do that, then it eases the pressure on other schools. I'll give you another example. In my constituency, the children of Bamboy, we had a JHS in Bamboy, and JHS is in a general catchment area. But the only secondary schools close to Bamboy were Bole Secondary School, Winchi Secondary School, Kintampo, and Tichiman. So all the children who finished JHS and had to go to secondary school had to go to any of these secondary schools. And so we put a community day secondary school in Bamboy. And so now the children in Bamboy and surrounding areas attend their community day schools. And so you notice that it would have eased the pressure on Bole, Kintampo, Tichiman, and Winchi. That is the general concept of it. And within 1 year, we can end the double track. This government says it will take 7 years to end. I say it will take 1 year to end it.
So all of this also will depend on the state of the national economy. And the current government admits that as of now, we are spending 3/4 of national revenue plus grants on debt servicing and repayment of principal. We are also being told that between 60 to 70% of total national revenue is being expended on the payment of public sector workers. Where are you going to find the resources to implement all of these lofty ideas?
Kwesi, how did the strong, resilient economy that Nana Akufo-Addo and Bawumia talked about crumble in the space of, let's say, 6 months? I mean, they were waxing lyrical about how strong this economy was and things have never been so good for Ghana. I mean, how come within 6 months of just a coronavirus pandemic, the whole economy has collapsed completely? We are facing the worst economic situation probably in the entire history of, I wouldn't even say probably, in the entire history of the Fourth Republic. The economy has never been this bad. And you see, when you have a hole and you're hiding it, you understand? Eventually, when reality catches up, you will find that that hole will be exposed. There's been a hole in this economy, and I've kept saying it. This is not the first time I'm going to say it. The finance minister, who is the cousin of the president, has been cooking the books since 2017. He has this way of, and it's the first time we're having this strange presentation of budget. Our budget numbers from 1992 to date are the budget numbers for everybody, for Parliament, for the International Donor Organization, for everybody. And those are the numbers that are presented to the world. This finance minister comes and he has liabilities, big ones. Instead of calculating them and putting them in the budget, he brings them to the bottom and puts them at footnotes. And so he doesn't factor them in the budget. And so he can give you a deficit number that looks good. He can give you a debt to GDP ratio that looks good. You know, he can give you, all his other fiscal statistics that look good. But as soon as you add the liabilities, one was the financial sector clean out, and two is the energy sector debt. The energy sector debt, today he owes the independent power producers alone $1.5 billion. $1.5 $1.5 billion. Those are the figures he's now put in the budget that are showing the kinds of numbers that are, and so he's been engaged in subterfuge, and sometimes very criminal subterfuge. I'll give you another example. In 2019, they didn't meet the domestic revenue target. You know what Oforiatta did? He made GRA go and borrow money from commercial banks and presented it and said, we met the revenue target. So when coronavirus struck, the commercial banks have been deducting the loan that they gave to show good figures for 2019. That is why the economy is worse than it is, because any revenue that comes, the commercial banks are taking their money back. And so some of these things have been very criminal, and I'm surprised that Professor Ade, as chairman of GRA, could connive to do something as criminal as this. The president knows about it. He's done nothing about it, And so yes, the economy is in a bad state. We handed him a much better economy. Growth had been projected at 8% for 2017. They had nothing to do with that growth. It had been projected. World Bank, IMF had all said that in 2018 the economy was going to grow at 8% because of the work that we had done in 2017, because of the work that we had done in 2016. I left him $300 million in the stabilization fund for a day such as this when Corona struck. And the stabilization fund is used to ameliorate economic shocks. And so I left him $300 million in that fund. I left him $270 million in the sinking fund, so that when the COFOR Eurobond became due, there will be money to pay for it. I left him $270 million in the Ghana Infrastructure Investments Fund. I left him 2 new oil fields, revenue from 2 new oil fields. All the development of infrastructure that I did in this country in my 4 years as president was with only the Jubilee field, 1 oil field. And even then, 1 oil field, there was a problem with the FPSO turret, and so they had to reduce production. And so he's got 3, 4, 5 times more oil revenue in his period than I got. But what is there to show for it? Virtually nothing. And look at the kind of figures you're talking about. Debt service and wages are more than 143% of domestic revenue. How could this have happened? It couldn't have happened overnight. So it means that they were criminally, hiding the true state of the economy from Ghanaians. And then coronavirus comes and they suddenly say, oh, this is the state of the economy, it's in a mess. But how did we end here? You said, yet Sika, so come there. Where is the Sika? Are we not still sitting on that money? Where is the gold? And the worst thing is that you kind of try to surreptitiously, take our gold royalties, get your family to get involved and set up some company in a tax haven and mortgage our gold royalties for the next 15 years for $500 million. And I've said that they've created a vortex, and the vortex is swallowing money like anything. If that 500 million had come, it wouldn't have done anything. We won't get anything tangible for it. It would have just been swallowed in his dead vortex. It's time to get him out. Get all the, level-headed people in this country to sit around the economy and fix it. I faced a problem with the economy as a result of the single spine. The single spine was inherited from the COFOR administration, and President Mills, started to deal with it. At the time, Governor Dufo was the finance minister. And so we did the negotiations until 2012. And then 2012, we started paying the single spine plus the arrears. And so in 2012, we were spending more than 73% of total revenue on wages and compensation alone, and had only 27% of revenue left for everything, goods and services, capital expenditure, everything, And so we've been faced with something like that before. What did we do? We called the Senchi Forum. You remember Senchi Forum? PV Obing was very active in that. We wanted to achieve consensus behind our economic program. So we invited all the stakeholders. Everybody was there. The only people who refused to attend were the New Patriotic Party. They actually issued a caveat that any of their members who attended would be sanctioned severely. And so some of them had accepted to come, but at the last minute, because of the party sanction, how unpatriotic can you be? So they refused to come. But we held the Senchi Forum. Out of the Senchi Forum came our homegrown fiscal consolidation policy. And eventually that became the basis for our negotiations with the IMF, which led to the program that we went into. Kwesi, by the time we left office, in 2016, I'll tell you this, most Ghanaians don't know. We financed the budget from our own revenues. We didn't borrow one CD from the central bank. The first time in Ghana's history. Everything that we financed the budget with in 2016, we did zero central bank financing. This had put the economy on a platform where, I mean, if the incoming administration and Ado's administration had taken over with the additional oil revenues and things, we would have just continued fiscal consolidation with growth. And you would have felt the prosperity within the system. Instead, they jettisoned everything and decided to go on their own track. This finance minister, you know what he's interested in? All he's interested in is going on the bond market and borrowing money, because he benefits from it indirectly. His company is at the bottom of borrowing all these euro bonds. He's borrowed $9 billion from the bond market in 4 years. And every bond he floats, Data Bank makes money out of it through proxies and other things, you know. And so this is clearly conflict of interest. The president knows about this, you know, and that's why he says, I'm too old to be corrupt. I'm not going to steal your money, because he knew his relatives would steal the money for him. And that's exactly what's happening. You know, he can go to a plush retirement because of Oyata and Gabi and everybody will look after him. Bumpty and Co would all look after him, you know. And so, yes, we have a broken economy, but it's time for the person who broke it to leave so that somebody can come and fix it.
Now, sir, you used some methods so, to deal with similar situation when you came to power. Are those methods still usable? And if they're not, how do you intend to tackle this huge monumental economic problems that face us?
Kwesi, it's like your own family budget and your own family economy. Yourself and my sweetheart and the children, you form an economic unit. When you're highly indebted and your income is low, what do? One, you cut expenditure and then you reprofile your debt so that it gives you a little more breathing space to be able to deal with the debt. By the time we end this year, our debt to GDP will be 80%. And let me explain that to your viewers. If Kwesi is worth, let's say, 100,000 Ghana cedis, you're worth 100,000 Ghana cedis, but your debt as a percentage of it means your building, your car, your house, your income that you make from your work, everything is 100,000 Ghana cedis a year. And yet your debt as a percentage of your total worth is 80%. It means you're broke. It means you have just 20% to maneuver with, because 80% of your total value is mortgaged in debt. And so, one, you need to reprofile your debt so that you get some breathing space to be able to do the investments that are necessary to get out of it. Now, one of the things that we could do to keep social and economic infrastructure still going is to use the new style of borrowing that we introduced. That is to borrow on a certain collateralized basis. For instance, we set up the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund. Now that fund was to take a percentage of VAT and a percentage of oil revenues, and it was going to become the investment vehicle for developing social and economic infrastructure. So we put seed money of 270 million in that fund, and there were supposed to be inflows there. And based on that collateralization, we could borrow money in order to do the critical developmental projects that we needed. That was a new idea that came. Terminal 3. We did it off the balance sheet of Ghana Airport Company. We used to take 60% of their airport passenger levy. And so I said, build us a new terminal. And they said, oh, okay, we can build you a new terminal, but give us our passenger levy, and we'll use it to collateralize and build a new terminal. And they did. Gapoha. They said, look, this port is congested, we need a new port. It says, what do we do? It says, okay, see your partners, Meridian Port Services, and take the debt on your collective balance sheets and build a new port. Today we have a brand new port, the most efficient in the whole of West Africa. You know, so there are ways of doing things, you know, that we are time tested. We have come out of this kind of hole before, and we have the people who can be able to work to get us out of this hellhole. But the first thing is to stop those who are doing damage to the economy. And then when you have stopped them from wrecking the economy further, then you can rescue the economy. This is a rescue mission. You know, Ghana is going in the wrong direction. Nana Akufo-Addo, with all the promise and the expectations that people had, has been a very sad disappointment. You know, and I find it very callous of them to say they fulfilled all their promises. They say, so we fulfilled our promises to the people. Every district I've gone to asks, do you have any of the factories here? It says, no, we don't have anything. You know, has there been any development? What development has taken place in your district over the last 4 years? It says nothing. It says the electrification you were doing, they've discontinued it. You build our road halfway, where you got to 4 years now, the road has been abandoned. I mean, these are a litany of stories all over. And yet, you know, the thing about MPP is they are good at talk. A lot of talk, plenty talk, but no action, you know. And so if you follow their propaganda and their talk, you think that Ghana is some rosy paradise. But we're sinking lower and lower. That survey was done recently, and the majority of Ghanaians said they feel worse off today than they were in 2016. And that is a fact. You know, cost of living has gone up, incomes have gone down. If you go to the Yam area, the price of the yam market has collapsed, and so the price of yam, you know, is not giving an economic rate of return to the farmers. And so the fear is that if we don't do something about it, a time will come the farmers cannot even just, you know, continue the supply of yams to the market.
Well, viewers and listeners, at this point we'd like to take a short break. We are in conversation with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, former president and presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. And this interview is coming to you live in the Marriott Hotel in Tamale. We're going to take a short break. And when we come after the break, sir, I'd like to find out from you how you evaluate the energy sector. It does appear to be collapsing. Short break.
Okay, good. The king will do all. So give me 4 more. More could do more.
Please be what they pour me. 4 more for what?
Master answer the guy. 4 more for what?
4 more to do more for you.
4 more to steal more excavators and our money? Bisabio. Or 4 more to kill Ghanaian businesses?
No!
4 more for family and friends?
4 more for neglected projects?
4 more for Sakawa and broken promises?
Opana, and now 4 more to borrow more with nothing to show. No way.
Hello, 4 more for lawlessness, intolerance, and harassment of the media and the political opponent. I beg you.
You make a cry self. What happened to the murders of Ahmed Swali?
What about the members of the Delta Force where they attacked the court for Kumasi?
Where them also brutalized innocent citizens for hours West Wogon. Even you the one that 4 more.
4 more for more corruption scandals like the PDS, Australian visa fraud scandal, Can say fraud scandal, then PPE, don't call me contract for sale by the incompetent clearing agents. 4 more to steal more.
No!
Away! 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 Away!
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
Aha! You know the jobs we create? Over 2 million jobs. It not be easy.
Yeah! Lies! You create all these jobs so we there we still suffer no.
Massa, you know hear of NAPCO?
You pa, what you they try talk? You they set permanent job, you say NAPCO.
You see, NAPCO be temporal. You guys no think round proper. The beneficiaries go lose them a job, can't join the unemployed soon.
Muff, how that one go feel happen, sir?
Even your NAPCO no, John Mahama promise say you go fix some by making the beneficiaries permanent public sector workers.
That be visionary.
Yes! The visionary promises the big one. Ejumapa. And the Ejumapa, 1 million permanent jobs with decent wages could be created over the next 4 years. That'll be 250,000 jobs per year.
Ejumapa, you do all.
Thank you.
That be too ambitious. How that one go feel happen, sir?
Thank you for the word so sweet. John Mahama projects say go stimulate the private sector, where it go give them incentives so they go free employ child people. He say medium-sized businesses no go pay corporate income tax for 2 years. Then my income tax also you go reduce them from 25% to 15%, so say they go fee expand. Small businesses self no go pay corporate income tax, where you go reduce VAT by 5%. Hey, what they bring me with there? Youth startup business no go pay tax for 2 years.
If you can say it be easy, like it be easy and we will not do it.
If no fit do, carry down your chair and no go. Make John Mahama come, they can't show you. The policies he did the Jumapa under, eh? Oh. See, when the raw materials like cocoa, cashew, and gold, we go process them for the country inside. This will help create jobs for our people. Where some go generate income, give the country. John Mahama, again, go scrap import duty where they commercial vehicles, then vehicles for industrial and agricultural purposes stop. You go fit.
Hey, set. But my guy, what day inside give we away we want job for the government sector?
Oh, master, that won't be bonus. See, whether you want go police or soldier or prison or GES or local government or you don't get problem. You there inside.
Opana, what you see?
You don't get anything talk.
Master, what did the Jumapa inside? For we will not get employable skills.
Oh, no worries, bro. The free TVET at the secondary and technical universities plus the National Apprenticeship Program will sort you out. Under the National Apprenticeship Program, you will get a chance to train in any craft of your choice for free, where you go get some allowance as you dey train.
Oh, what a wow!
Oh yes, not only that. You will get free toolkits to set up your own business once you play it. Hey, I win this again.
Hey, Ejimapa!
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
When I was little, I wanted to know how things worked, why things happened the way they did. I was lucky to witness the Fourth Republic. Even though I didn't understand much at the time, I could remember the joy on my mother's face when she said, "It's a new dawn, Mommy. Come on, let's take you to bed." As we witnessed a new transition, I wondered why no woman was up there to take the front ranks. My mother always said, "It's a man's world out there. You need to work hard." 2 questions on my mind. Why don't I do it? Why not me? As things became clearer, I kept asking, how would it be to have one of us at the top? So, I worked harder and even extra hard, hoping that someday, when I'm ready to take the bold step, I'll be undeniable. Nothing good comes easy, they say. I may seem overambitious, but it's good to scare yourself sometime. My mother said, if all these great men can, I also can.
It's a man's world, my child. You need to work hard.
Working hard for this seemed like a fruitless toil for women. But in 2020, something happened.
Breaking news. The NDC has selected a female running mate.
There's light at the end of the tunnel, we say. This day is the beginning of everything good we've been working for. I'll tell my child and my child's children, just because she can, they also can. Change is here indeed.
Making history is gratifying, but what really matters is not to be the first through the door. What matters is to hold that door open for those behind us.
Come 7th December 2020, let's go to the polls and vote John Dramani Mahama and Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Let's vote for inclusiveness. Let's vote number 2 for change.
The NDC's People's Manifesto. It be dope one. See, the warrior no. Bro, you know say me as a day, me now they do my hustles 1 and 2, they get money, they take settle my school fees. But right now, John Mahama say chemupe. Which means the NDC Mahama-led government will pay 50% of school fees for all tertiary students in the universities, polytechnics, college of education, nursing training schools, and so on.
Charlie, John Mahama be visionary. Jempe go ease pressure for parents and students the matter pound. The one way they freak me be the increase of the student loan to meet the needs of the students, and it will be paid on time. You know, say after John Mahama increased the student loan 2,600 in 2016. Oh, Panano at Prez since 2017.
Oh yeah, I be here say John Mahama say he go cancel the guarantor requirement. So say students go access the loan without the need for a guarantor.
What's for that move there? Mama post one. What they finish me be say, John Mahama say he go bring back the student loan plus scheme. This scheme go allow students we get admission to tertiary schools. If you apply for loan even before them go school.
Charlie, John Mahama do all. This trip, I go be free from hustling to pay my school fees. I go have time to study brutal and top my class.
Any challenger? No challenger. My guy, Chempe.
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
Okay. Well, hello and welcome back to this very special interview with His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. This interview is coming to you from the Marian Hotel in Tamale, and we are rebroadcasting it on many other radio stations and television stations. And just before we went on the break, I asked His Excellency to be reflecting on the energy sector. The energy sector appears to be in deep crisis. It is riddled with debt. Independent power producers are owed more than $1 billion. The Electricity Company of Ghana is owned heavily. Volta River Authority is in crisis. Are you not worried that on your assumption of power, the crisis in the energy sector could cripple the national economy even more?
It could. And the energy sector has been the Achilles heel of this economy for a long time. And that was because of several factors, both in terms of power production and in terms of supply of petroleum products. And so if you remember, in the past, the Tort Debt Recovery Levy was introduced to try and resolve issues in the energy sector. Now, when we came into office, we had two problems, two situations. One, we had a generational deficit. Ghana was using close to 3,000 megawatts, 2,700, 2,800 at peak hours. And we could put into the system, maybe about 2,300 megawatts. So there was a deficit of about 500 megawatts. And that's what led to doomsday and power rationing. By end of 2015, we had brought in the car power ship, and then we had also brought in the Ameri plants. The two combined, generation plants covered the deficit. And so by beginning of 2016, there was no power rationing. And I'm going to say that for a fact. In 2016, there was no power rationing in Ghana. We suspended power rationing. So everybody was getting full power. If anybody's lights went off, it was due to an outage, either a transformer blowout or a line drop or something. So 2016, there was no doomsday. The only thing left was the debt and fueling the power plants. And so, you know what we did? We resolved that problem by introducing the Energy Sector Levy Act, ESLA. Now, ESLA was tax on petroleum products, which was geared to be channeled towards defraying and liquidating the legacy debts of the power sector. And so, if you remember, when we introduced it, Nana Akufo-Addo and MPP said I was the most wicked president in history, and that I was overtaxing Ghanaians and so on and so forth. And that when they came into office, they were going to abolish ESLA. You remember that? Yes. Today, but for ESLA, we'll be even in worse trouble. So what we did was, once we established ESLA, we got the banks to whom we owed, all the power sector debts. And these banks were led by Stanbic. It was a consortium. And so we went with them, we cut off the penal interest and things, we renegotiated the debts, and we all agreed that this was the debt. And so we said, okay, we're going to put the ESLA funds into an escrow to be handled by Stanbic. And as the funds come in, Stanbic will distribute the money proportionately to all the creditors. Everybody agreed. And then we put this arrangement in place. We left office. Because the president's cousin likes going on the capital market, he rubbished our arrangements and decided that no, he was going to create a new arrangement. So he created ESLA into a special purpose vehicle, like a limited liability company. And he mortgaged and floated ESLA. So he's mortgaged ESLA for all the revenues in ESLA have been mortgaged for like the next 15 years. And yet, instead of using the money for the purposes, there was a time where they used ESLA proceeds to pay pensions. Complete misuse of what the ESLA funds were meant for. And so instead of using ESLA to pay down the debt, they have kept escalating the debt. And then what compounded it was they went and brought this strange creature called PDS, which was something that I negotiated, the Millennium Challenge Compact. and it was supposed to have private sector participation in distribution of electricity. We didn't finish the negotiations before we left. When they came, they saw an avenue to make money for the family. You can hear Gabby's voice, you can hear Bumpty's voice, clearly negotiating shareholding in PDS. I don't know, there's something with Ghana. We're either too shocked by the corruption of the Akufo-Addo administration that nothing shocks us anymore. So now when huge magnitude of corruption happens, people just don't have the energy to even talk about it again, you know. But they went and brought this strange creature called PDS. PDS has taken some of electricity companies' revenues, more than 200 million, and put it in a commercial bank here, and that money is earning interest. And we need to ask them, who is the interest going to? And meanwhile, what this government has done is they've encouraged PDS to sue government for wrongfully terminating their contract. But it's the same president's family behind it suing government. The shareholders, they've encouraged them to sue government, and in the meantime they kept that money there, knowing that they would get a court or something to rule against government, and then they can go back and take that money and share it. You see, there's a lot that is happening. This government has mismanaged the energy sector so badly. Like we said, the own independent power producers alone, 1.5 billion. We were lifting the capacity of the transmission cable that goes to Burkina Faso. Gridco was working on it. We're elevating it to 161 so that kVA, so that we could easily evacuate excess electricity to Burkina Faso. Since they came, that project has stopped. If that project had been completed, we can supply Burkina Faso power at a lower cost than they can generate it from fossil fuels. And so we would have started earning some foreign currency from electricity export. That was the design of the whole thing. We wanted to integrate our power transmission system with Nigeria so that we could evacuate some extra power to assist Nigeria in terms of power generation. They haven't followed anything like that. We're going to set up the electricity market where every country can put its excess electricity on an auction, and then people can buy, I need 100 megawatts or I need 50 megawatts a day, you know, at this price. All those things have just collapsed completely. The tragedy of this administration will be seen after they leave office. It's like a person who has soiled himself and is sitting in it. He cannot get up for fear that people will see he has soiled himself. But it's only when he's forced to get up that people will see the extent of the damage that has been done to this economy. The energy sector surely is a danger to the economy. But we fixed it before, and we'll fix it again. We'll negotiate with the power producers. We'll negotiate with the creditors. We'll put in a system that gives them confidence that they will get their money. And once you do that, people are prepared to be reasonable.
But the independent power producers have already started threatening
that
they will shut down their plants.
Yeah, because they know that Oforiatta is joking with them. You understand? I mean, when it's overdue, he'll just go find a little something and throw it at them, and then just use it to keep them quiet. You know, when they agitate again, he'll find some 100 million and give to them so that they'll be quiet. But then the debt continues to accumulate. That's what he's doing. The last Eurobond he undertook, the 3 billion. I know that at least $1 billion of it was supposed to be committed to paying down the power sector debt, and we need to ask him, what has he done with that money? If he had paid, you know, the independent power producers, they wouldn't be making the noise that they are making currently. So I'm sure that he's used it for other purposes.
The banking sector reform has had many difficulties. Well, the Ghanaian share of the banking market is actually shrunk and so on. But there are so many people on the streets agitating to be paid their deposits and investments and so on. January 7th, 2021, Excellency John Dramani Mahama is in power. How do you propose to deal with this particular situation? First of all, how do you propose to deal with the situation where the indigenous banking sector is shrinking? And how do you deal with the depositors and investors who have lost their money?
I have stated clearly, and we've put it in our manifesto, that we're going to restore the indigenous investment in the financial sector. The financial sector is such a critical strategic sector that you cannot have it foreign dominated in your country. You must have indigenous investment in that sector. And so we set out deliberately to encourage Ghanaians to go into banking and into other financial institutions. And so, several Ghanaians set up banks, others set up savings and loans companies, and there were microfinance companies. Nobody denies that there were some liquidity problems, but some of those liquidity problems were caused by government itself, because people had gone to take loans from the banks and the microfinance companies, and they had made supplies to government, and government legitimately owed them, those monies for work done. Then a new government comes in. It's like there's been a coup d'etat, and they say, everybody stop work, and we won't pay you until we have vetted your payments and all that. And for 4 years, there are people who have not been paid. I spoke to a contractor 3 days ago. He has 3 or 4 certificates since 2016 waiting to be paid. He hasn't been paid anything. And so he stopped work. He's laid off his workers. Recently, now the elections are coming, they've asked him to go on some road that he was working on. They say, you should show presence because of the elections. And he says, how am I going to show presence? You owe me, you haven't paid me. Where am I going to find money, get my operators back, put diesel in this thing, go and then start working on the road? And so he's not been able to mobilize to go on the road. But that's the history of this administration. So they were partially responsible for the collapse of the banks, because their liability to some of these contractors, I understand, in total came up to about 5.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now I think that if government had paid its liability and the contractors had paid 5.7 billion into the banking sector, it would have collapsed. They would have had enough liquidity to stay afloat. Now the intent to kill them was clear, because one, we won't pay the contractors who owe you. We say that has nothing to do with you. It's a contract between us and our suppliers. Whatever contract you have with this one, collateralize it, take their collateral or do whatever. Then at the same time, you tell the banks, increase your capital reserve to 400 million from 80 million. And so if by this date you don't reach that thing, we're going to close you down. And the Bank of Ghana keeps threatening them. And so you know what happens? But if these banks are in danger of closing, then I'm not going to put my money there. And even the little money I have, let me go and take my thing out. So long before the banks closed, everybody who came into the bank was coming to take money, not coming to deposit. And so they had already sealed the fate of those institutions. Now, experts estimate that we needed 9 billion Ghana cedis to bail out those financial institutions. Weed some out, of course, somewhere in a very bad state, so you could have weeded them out. But you needed about 9 billion to save the financial sector. If Ghana were your company, Kwesi, 9 billion you needed to do a bailout and keep them afloat. You refused and you collapsed them, and you guaranteed depositors funds. Now you've ended up with a debt of 22 billion. If Ghana were your company, would you leave a liability of 9 billion and go and embrace a liability of 22 billion? And so that's the situation in which this government finds itself. Now, when I said that, look, these are Ghanaian savings. Some people have saved to put money there, and the interest was what was keeping them going. They're on retirement, that's their only source of income. Others too, that's their capital that was in there. And so because of that, their companies are collapsing. So I said, look, if I get elected, I'll pay in full what we owe them. And we had a simple strategy to do that. We're going to pay them a certain portion of their deposits. What government was doing was giving them paper bonds at 0 interest for 5 years. So you have to sit for 5 years, 0 interest, before you are able to retrieve your money. And so what we're going to do was we're going to give them paper bonds, but we're going to make the bonds marketable by putting an interest rate on the bonds. And so if somebody couldn't wait for 5 years, he could go to a bank and say, look, you take this paper, discount it for me and give me this money so that I can go about my business. The bank adds it to their assets. And so in the bank's books, they have the assets, and they can wait and collect it after 5 years with the interest. That's what we're going to do. vigilantes, and there's even a suspicion that some of them are the ones engaged in some of these robberies. You know, and so, I mean, this government has created a very unsafe situation for Ghanaians. There are some communities on every market day, and the armed robbers know the market days. On every market day, they go and wait for them. After they finish market and they are coming home, then they stop them and take everything from them. Just ask any community here, and they'll tell you that you don't go out after a certain time in the night. Now the robbers too realize that people are not coming out in the night, so they've shifted their operation to daytime. You heard about a month ago on the Bolga Road, daytime the robbers came out and they robbed people. So they say, if you come out in the night, then we'll come and get you in the daytime. You know, this government is not serious about safety and security. But you know, NDC, I mean, safety and security is one of our, strong points, because we know how to do it. We know how to promote on merit. We know how to put the right people in the right places. We know how to equip the police and the armed forces with the logistics to do the fight against crime. When we were in office, we had the joint anti-armed robbery patrols, that is military and police. And they patrolled all the places that were prone to armed robbery, and they made them safe. People could go about their duties. When I was president, I used to go on the road at midnight and you see cars coming and going. Now you won't find any cars, at night. And so that's one of the things we're going to deal with. We're going to give the police and the military, restore the joint military police anti-armed robbery squad, give them the bulletproof vests, the helmets, give them the light armored vehicles, give them the weapons to be able to fight the armed robbery menace. This government is giving those weapons and the bulletproof vests and things to their vigilantes. And so you see vigilantes in all kinds of military fatigues wearing bulletproof vests. That bulletproof vest should be given to a soldier or to a policeman. And you see the sorry sight of how low our morale is. During the registration exercise, some guy in Mufti was brandishing a pistol. A police officer was sitting and he was threatening the police officer and pointing the pistol at him. I mean, a police officer in uniform was being threatened by some unknown person, and when you are across them, they'll flash a national security card. When the national security become an operational wing of the security service, it's a coordinating wing. National security personnel don't go around with AK-47s and pistols. And the sorry thing about that video I saw was there were soldiers there and police there. And instead of arresting this guy and beating the hell out of him, they were begging him and asking him to calm down, calm down. Somebody was threatening your fellow police officer. So morale is so low. Recently there was the incident of a police pickup with new patriotic party supporters in it. Have you heard anything about it again? I raised it personally. The IGP said there was going to be an investigation. How many months do you investigate something like this? I mean, the public should have been told, look, the officer did wrong, he's been sanctioned or something, and then everybody knows that. But in discipline, discipline has broken down. And so everybody does whatever they want and they get away with it. And so that's the net effect of what you get. But we're going to stamp out, this insecurity. We're going to stamp out armed robbery and make Ghana safe again.
Now, sir, will you accept the results of the elections no matter who wins?
Everybody knows me. I am a committed Democrat, and in all situations I've acted, legally and legitimately. And when I have lost an election, I have readily conceded if I thought the processes were transparent, free and fair. In 2016, there were some flaws in the election. Kwesi, up to today, the Electoral Commission cannot gazette the polling station results. They've gazetted the presidential results, but you need to gazette the polling station results so that we can add up the gazetted polling station results, because that will mean that those are the certified results. And then we'll compare it with the results of the presidential election. So they go about banding, we beat him by 1 million votes, we beat him by 1 million votes. But they can't gazette the polling station results because that will show exactly what happened at the polling station. So today it has not been done. I mean, one could stand on that basis and condemn the election, and there were a few things that happened, but I couldn't keep the nation on tenterhooks. And so by 2-3 days, after the election, we're still waiting for the results because they had hacked the EC's electronic transmission system and brought it down. And so they had to do all the results transmission manually. I wrote a letter to Jean Mensah and I told her that we were told by the EC that its website was hacked and that the electronic transmission had been hacked. And so the EC asked its officers to do the transmission manually, the tallying manually and transmit manually. I said, can you investigate? Let's find out what happened so that it serves as a guide to the future. She never responded to me. So today as we sit, we don't know what happened to the electronic transmission system. We don't know whether that's going to happen again. You hear rumors that they've brought Israelis, MPP has brought Israelis into town. You saw they published the faces of some people. Recently we hear some Australians are in town and what, all meant to hack into the EC system and things. If we had done a thorough investigation, with this new system we brought, we would have tested the firewalls and things to make sure that you cannot get the system hacked. But we didn't do it. So we're going again blind into this election. I've already heard the EC say that they will they will tally manually and transmit manually. And I thought that was okay, it's fine, because we'll have our agents at all the points where the tallying is taking place. Then the EC comes out again and says, we're going to publish the results within 24 hours. You cannot publish results within 24 hours if you're going to declare the results on manual transmission. You know what takes, I've been in collation rooms before, and I know what takes place with collation, and there can even be the possibility of recounts, people asking for a recount, you understand? So you cannot come and say, within 24 hours you intend to announce the results. What are you in a rush for? Is there something we don't know? And we've had intelligence that they want to declare some result very quickly, start jubilating, and then that's all. And then if we protest, they say go to court. That's what we're hearing. And from what the EC guy said, he should be calm. We're not declaring any results. We're not rushing to declare any results just to achieve a 24-hour limit. The law states the period in which the results should be transmitted, and that should be declared, and that is what we must abide by. They say we're going to do manual transmission. We're going to be in the collation centers, and now they've added another tier of collation, because they'll collate at the constituency level, and the tally sheets, after they have been signed, will be sent to the regional collation centers, and there again they will be retallied before the final result is transmitted to the EC. And so you can't come and say within 24 hours you intend to declare a winner of elections. The parliamentary is okay, because the winners are declared at the constituency level, and so there, as soon as they finish their tallying, they announce who has won, and then they start jubilating. But the presidential goes through that process and eventually ends up in the EC strong room, and our people will be there, and the tally will be done there, and then finally somebody will be declared a winner. The process leading up to the elections have been flawed in many ways. The EC itself has breached its legal rules so many times. As I sit with you, they said 30,000 names were expunged from the register. Those whose names have been expunged, we don't know. Somebody's gone to court to ask them to publish it. Why should you be forced to publish the names of people whose names have been expunged from the register and tell them why you have removed their names? Even that is like pulling a bad tooth out of somebody's mouth. So painful. They've gone to resurrect all these moribund dead parties. They've gone to find money for the founders to resurrect the parties, and they've all come into IPAC. And as soon as something is discussed, we used to agree by consensus in IPAC, then they'll activate their ghost parties, and they'll say let's vote. And then because they have about 13 parties that were dead and have resurrected, it's only Jesus Christ I know resurrected, but parties to resurrect in Ghana, and they'll say let's vote, and then of course they'll vote, and then they'll go back and collect their little pennies from the powers that be. So the process has been flawed, but as Democrats, we've not been willing to disrupt the constitutional process and the democratic process. So we've protested at every point, but we have gone along. We have sent our people to the printing of ballot paper. You saw recently excess ballots, 1 million excess ballots. How did that happen? And then you have to burn 1 million excess ballots. I mean, it's either malicious intent or is sheer incompetence. It's one of the two, But knowing the kind of electoral commission we've had, I wonder how it could have become so incompetent overnight, So that is that. But what will actually determine is the D-Day and after. What happens on election day? We're hearing all kinds of rumors. Already we have people in the armed forces. We know the deployments they've made in the Volta region. And we don't know what they are deploying all those soldiers in the Volta region for. Maybe to intimidate the people like they did during the registration exercise. We know the issue of Western Togoland. You understand? The Western Togoland guys who went and put sand on the road, the Sogakope road and other things. They are not the proper Western Togoland. What's the man's name? Efo, the old man. I forgot his name. They are not Efo something people. This is an instrument of national security. And so they tell them what to do and, show them what to do. We have intelligence that on that day, they will attempt to disrupt things in the Volta region. And if they do, it's because national security wants to suppress the votes in the Volta region. And so that is one. They come up with flashpoints and say that the flashpoints in Ghana are over 4,000. Kwesi, when have you heard about 4,000 flashpoints? Even in my time, I remember there were hundreds. I was chair of the National Security Secretariat. And so we get reports from the National Elections Task Force. We always set up a task force that has national security, the military, customs, and everybody there. And then they do the planning for election day security. In my time, I remember there were, I don't remember the exact figure, but I don't think there were more than 500 flashpoints in the whole of this country. Suddenly, this election, the election task force declares 4,000 and something flashpoints. And the point is, when you declare a place of flashpoint, you must indicate what the threats are. Ballot box snatching, interference by political thugs. There are several things that, a fear of ethnic conflict. There are several things that can make a place a flashpoint. But I haven't seen any such description of why we have 4,000 and something flashpoints. Is it to prepare our minds for some things that they intend to happen in those places, And so accepting the results depends on before the processes before, the processes during the election, and the processes after. We have come through the processes before. They were flawed, but we have gone along. But D-Day is going to be critical. What happens on D-Day if people are intimidated, ballot boxes are snatched, people are, beaten, shot, and things, that will indicate whether the election, is an election that must be accepted or not accepted. And even after D-Day, if there are funny things with the transmission of the results and all that, that is what will determine. I mean, who accepts an imperfect election? Who accepts a flawed election? Nana Addo himself has a history of not accepting any elections, even when they've been the best free and transparent elections. He went and tied me up in court in 2013, for almost a year, contesting the results of the 2012 elections. When Professor Mills beat him, he refused to concede to Professor Mills, and he's never conceded elections, even when the elections have been good. If the election is free, transparent, and fair, and it's peaceful, and I'm convinced that the results have not been tampered with and everything is okay, why not? I'll accept. But if it is flawed, and on the day you go around, if they do what they did in Ayahuasca West, who expects me to accept a result like that?
Your Excellency, thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much for your time and all the explanations that you have given. Well, listeners and viewers, we've been talking to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, former president and presidential candidate of the National Democratic Congress. We actually broke into his campaign tour of the Northern region and are speaking to him from the Marian Hotel in Tamale. Thanks to all of you for allowing us into your homes, your cars, and so on. It's been a pleasure talking to His Excellency, and we do hope that all of us have gained something from this conversation. Bye-bye to all of you from Pan-African Television, from Power FM, from Ahuto FM, from all the outlets which picked this conversation. Bye-bye to all of you. Bye-bye.
What did the pharmacist say?
Grandma, he said this medication too is not covered under the NHIS.
Oh, are they destroying the national health insurance too?
No worries, Grandma. In the NDC's People's Manifesto, John Mahama says if he wins, he will provide free primary health care for all.
That's interesting. Tell me more.
Oh yes, under this policy, any Ghanaian who visits the district hospital, clinic, polyclinic, or the CHIPS compound with malaria, hypertension, diabetes, fibroid and so on will be treated for free, whether or not they have an NHIS card.
Really?
Oh yes, Grandma. All you need to enjoy free healthcare is the possession of any national ID card that shows that you are Ghanaian.
But Baba, will he cancel the national health insurance?
No, Grandma. He won't cancel the NHIS.
Oh, okay.
The free primary healthcare policy will just complement the NHIS.